What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of the Empire State of Mind podcast. I am Aaron. This is James. This is Al. We are here talking yet another 49ers loss in this second to last Monday of December as we get ever so closer to the end of the season and start essentially looking forward to next year because James and me were talking before the stream started. That's pretty much all you can do at this point. This season is wrapped. It's over with. It's finished. Put a fork in it. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. I mean, it's pretty much what we thought it would be. We're at the tail end of the season. The season's over, so we got the kind of kick in the leg, and oh, here you go, play a game that doesn't matter. But of course, Debo plays great on the day it doesn't matter, which I thought was funny. But yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to next season and hopefully we even get a higher pick. I'm looking for number 10 at least because we need it. We need good draft picks. We need a lot of young players next year.
Well, listen, Miami was only like a 1 or 2 point favorite, and that was, I guess, Vegas being really generous. I think we all had the loss happening, but maybe not. I mean, it wasn't a huge loss, 12 points, but I thought the Niners would keep it within one score, and that Achan breaking the run at the end for 50 yards, eerily similar to the Super Bowl in that stadium when whoever the Chiefs running back was it Darren Williams or whatever, wound up breaking the run down the sideline to get him up 11. So not good experience, at least the last 5 years down in Miami. But listen, at this point, we as Niner fans and the faithful, I think, have a lot of collective gripes. Different gripes for different people, of course, but between Moody and Sorensen and Brendel, Banks is probably gone now that he injured his MCL. I think there's going to Brian Schneider. The worse it looks late in the season, the last 2, 3, 4 games, I think that's going to leave the lasting impression in Shanahan's mind of who to get rid of and who not to invite back if you're a free agent and who to cut if you're under contract. I mean, the Niners can do better in a lot of areas, strength and conditioning, coaching notwithstanding. But listen, they lose the next 2. To James's point, they get a better, a top 10 pick. And it might force, Kyle and John's hand to do some things that they might not have done otherwise.
I felt that if we finished the season strong, that it would. I felt like it would affect decisions being made as far as things that need to happen in the offseason, whether it's Sorensen being fired or special teams coach being fired or certain players being let go. So yesterday's outcome, like you said, the worse it goes, I feel like the more of a lasting imprint in somebody's mind, like John Lynch's mind, because we know the Niners like to protect and coddle certain players, like Moody, for instance. And I feel like yesterday was about as low as the Niners could go in a loss. Yesterday's loss to me, guys, was a microcosm of the season. Just how the game unfolded. Competitive early. Lots of penalties. Lots of mental errors. Turnovers at an inopportune time, and just the tackling and the defense late was about has played about as much as it went the way we thought or how it's been going all season as far as just how the game played out. So every piece of thing that we've seen during the season that's affected Niners in losses happened in yesterday's game at different points to just reinforce the thought that this needs to be a massive overhaul, yet not a rebuild, whether it be coaches or players or a combination of both. It was about as bad as it could go yesterday. Of course, blame was being thrown around at the end of the game to, pretty, the usual place that it goes after a 49ers loss. And I totally disagree with it. So going forward, we could talk about that. But yesterday, I kind of wanted a loss just because, like you guys said, the better the draft position, the better the chance the Niners got at getting an impact player to start next year right away. And so far, so good. But the way they lost, it was as ugly as it could be. So this has been the season from hell. And I feel like with the last 2 games to go, it could get even worse, especially playing Detroit. So Niner fans better get their popcorn ready because this might even get uglier before the season ends.
At least they were consistent yesterday. Like, I mean, granted, they didn't hit on all negative cylinders in previous weeks like they did yesterday. Like, what could go? I mean, only one turnover at a bad time, the end of the fourth quarter by Brock. That was bad. Obviously, Pearsall's penalties, the personal fouls from Demo and Hufunga and Jordan Elliott, just all wildly unnecessary stuff, shooting themselves in the foot. And Kittle said it after the game. I mean, how much do we want to put that discipline type stuff on coaching? Because you could assign a percentage. I wouldn't put it over 50% because at some point, I mean, these people have been playing football since what, like Pee Wee? They should know how to line up. They should know not to be aggressive jerks and hit people well after the whistle. I mean, the Jordan Elliott one was close, but he didn't need to land on him with his knee and his body
He
weight.
dropped the people's elbow on that guy.
He
It
went
was
straight
bad.
WWE.
He went straight
Fungas.
people's elbow.
Demo's was weak. That shouldn't have been. I mean, that was weak. But at that point, there, you don't need to. When the margin for error is so slim, you don't need to invite a chance for refs to kind of back you up even more. So the Niners put on display. Thank God it wasn't for a national audience. Every aspect, including special teams, of course, every aspect of the game that has struggled was a perfect storm, and it was still only 22-17 with 3 minutes to go in the fourth. But Brock throws that pick, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, which was ill-advised to say the least. But listen, this isn't when we're talking about the draft pick, this isn't a situation like the Giants. They might have sewn up the number 1 draft pick with their loss and Las Vegas's ridiculous win over Jacksonville yesterday. But Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, they don't know if they're going to be there. So it doesn't behoove them to keep losing because they're probably going to get fired. We know, even though there's some 49er fans out there that still have some doubt and they're midbrains about, Kyle Shanahan's job security, he's going to be here. Lynch is going to be here. Brock's going to be here and he's going to get paid. So you can get a top 10 pick and competitively lose, or, you're not actually waving the white flag, but you're still losing. And that pick can creep into the top 10, top 8. That's fine. Cause fourth place schedule, top 10 pick, people getting healthy equals potential bounce back season. Think of the Eagles last year.
Yeah. There's a lot.
The only way
there's a lot we can look forward to. Cause if we get a better schedule than I feel like this schedule is a lot harder than people think. We had, Detroit, we have Detroit coming up. We had the Vikings. We had some good teams this year that we played against, the Chiefs. So even an easier schedule, like you said, Al, like that makes a huge difference. And the fact that we got so many players that are going to be either gone or replaced, this team could flip so easily. And that's the thing. People keep blaming Brock Purdy for this and that. But look at the team around him. I keep saying this every podcast because it's true. He has not had the same offense around him in every game. He's had different players in every single game, almost every single game, not every single game, almost every single game. And the fact is, he still threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. And yes, he has not thrown as many touchdowns as he did last year, but look at what he's had. And it's the easy thing to do is blame the quarterback. But you got to look at that offensive line too. I mean, that play where he threw the pick, he was getting mauled. And the other thing that bothers me is like he gets passes blocked and everybody's like, well, he's too short. He throws. No, that has nothing to do with being too short. Drew Brees did not get passes deflected. It's just a little technique that Brock's got to work on. He's got to work on getting that arm around the defender. He's got to start looking around the defender, not throwing it straight at the guy. And that comes with experience, So for guys to just be like, oh, Purdy's so bad, don't get him. Get a rookie quarterback. It's just crazy to me.
There was a lot of blame to go around yesterday, and I, we can go to the Brock Purdy thing if you want, but like the offensive line yesterday before the injuries was awful, and they just got worse. Brock Purdy was under duress the whole game. It's the 49ers have had this issue for a while now, where their offensive line has been substandard for years. They have a bunch of really good skilled position players, but they have an offensive line who's been substandard for years and has continually gotten quarterbacks injured. And it's a fact because it's happened. We've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this might finally be the year where priority goes to the offensive line because it's gone about as bad as it could possibly go. Like you said, Banks, I think he's gone. I wish Ben Barch, we could have got a good look at him. That's probably
Yeah.
not going to happen. Brendel is below substandard as a center, and McKivitz is a rotational backup at best. So the Niners need to make some massive changes. Like I said, it's like a reboot, but a refresh at the same time. It's not necessarily a reboot because we still have a ton of talent on our team. But my issue was everybody kind of going at Brock at the end of that game. Brock had a really good game up until that point.
Yeah.
He got smashed right at the time he was making that throw. So do I think Brock needs to figure out what is going on with this scrambling thing that he's been doing all season and start getting rid of the ball a lot sooner? Absolutely. I just think young quarterbacks sometimes have down years and regress. I mean, look at CJ Stroud, even in a year where they're probably going to make the playoffs. He's had a regressing year. He's taken a step back. It happens to young quarterbacks all the time. This team has taken a step back too. So like this whole thing where it's all Brock Purdy's fault, this whole team has taken a step back. Brock Purdy is like fifth on the list to me of things that need to be worried about in the offseason. And for all the idiots out there who think the Niners need to draft a quarterback or go sign Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins, like, dude, eat shit, man. Like, go away.
Yeah.
Like, get out of here. Get out of my mentions. Get off my timeline.
It's a waste of time.
Like, just stop. It's not going to happen.
The Cousins thing has a very distinct possibility of happening with the report of the Vikings going to release him. If that does happen, it just needs to happen after they sign Purdy. Because if Cousins get released before they sign Purdy, then the non-10 creators and the ivory tower shitheads on social media and even the general media are going to pick it up like, oh, Shanahan's got a bromance with Cousins. Are they going to pick him up and make a competition for Purdy? Let him sign Purdy early in February, or late February before free agency starts. Cousins gets released. If you want, it's not a competition. You want to come in, Kirk, just like Sam Darnold did last year. You can be the backup. Anything happens, you're obviously the starter. But he may have an opportunity at, someplace like a Las Vegas. I mean, Vegas went from the number 2 pick down to number 8 with that garbage win against Jacksonville. Like, they've basically played themselves out of a quarterback. So they're going to need somebody. Indianapolis is going to need somebody. Cleveland's going to need somebody. The Jets or Giants. I mean, so there's going to be opportunities for him to start and get probably another Kirk Cousins max contract for 2 years. Although he'll just get, vet minimum since the Falcons are going to be paying him. But yeah, Purdy also just needs, and Kyle, in terms of like down and distance and situational football, they didn't even need to pass all the way there. Kind of like the end of the Super Bowl in that stadium. They had the ball at midfield with 2.5 to go. They're passing as if they were down 2 scores. I mean, they could have just taken their time and done your normal 49er drive, mixing in the run with the pass. Brock did, and I'm sure we all saw the game, and I'm sure we all saw the clip on social media about why didn't Brock check it down instead of forcing it to Jennings, and Brock got hit as he was stepping into it. He was trying to layer it over to Jennings. Unfortunately, that was Patrick Taylor in the route. And when you play the video, there's a defender coming down on him. So if he leads Patrick Taylor, Taylor's going to get blown up. Plus, this is also the Patrick Taylor that basically played hot potato with the ball earlier in the game and just kind of batted it backwards. That was almost an interception that got kind of overruled. I'll go past Brock for 1 second, just since I'm talking about Patrick Taylor. He's awful. The Niners had 18 rushes for 81 yards, something crazy like that. They've been outrushed in 8 games this year. Like that, for a Kyle Shanahan-led team, that's unacceptable. If you don't have a ton of faith in Patrick Taylor, either as a pass receiver or as a running back, put anyone else back in there, right? Keyshawn Vaughn, Abanika, whoever. Patrick Taylor is not a running back that's going to threaten anything. And hopefully Guarendo's healthy against the Lions. But man, he was a big shitburger running the ball and attempting to catch it yesterday. And it was extremely disappointing to say.
My brother asked me who Patrick Taylor was yesterday. I said, He is the backup to the backup to the backup. I think to the backup. Like
the backup.
the way I said it,
Yeah.
my brother started laughing because he's like, Aaron, what do you expect, man? Like, I'm like, I know, but geez, dude, it's the NFL. Catch the ball. And it was just one big issue after another with Patrick Taylor. He can't run it. He can't catch it. He's useless. He's bad.
Who was
And
that guy? Who was that guy on the Giants that was huge? The running back.
Ron
Jacob?
Dane.
No, it was. I think his last name was Jacobs.
Oh, Brandon Jacobs. He was with the Niners,
Brandon Jacobs.
right?
Yeah, yeah. He reminds me of him, but like even like way worse. Huge running back, but can't like break tackles. He can't do anything.
Bad.
Yeah, it was an awful ending to a game yesterday. It's man, like Brock. I saw a comment in about Joe Montana and Steve Young having down years. And Lowell Cone used to cover the 49ers, and he was a shit starter back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So nothing that comes out of the offspring's mouth about Brock or any of the quarterbacks on this team should really be any surprise because, as they say, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. So, I mean, if you're talking about Montana and Young and trying to bait, ask surly questions to the coach or be that one guy in the media room who thinks he's smarter than everybody else because he's a sarcastic a-hole. Like, so, and that's to me, it's not a real mystery with that whole situation. We can go to special teams. Yesterday, we've talked about this all year about how the 49ers coddle Jake Moody. They coddle certain players. They protect them. I kind of have a feeling yesterday Kyle Shanahan might have broke. Like, I think yesterday broke Kyle when it came to Moody because when he was asked outright if he has confidence in him, he didn't answer the question. Al, like, what the hell, man? Is he going to get cut? Should they cut him?
In the offseason, I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea to leave him. I mean, you need 90 men on the roster, right, for training camp. Don't draft a kicker. Or if you're going to have multiple. Yeah, I mean, you have multiple 7th round picks. If a kicker's best available and you want to take him as a 7th, great. But I would bring in, I would even maybe sign a low level free agent, undrafted free agent, rookie, bring in for competition. Kyle was not happy when he missed the kick. If you could read lips, he was dropping something that you would say in an R-rated movie. And after the game, not too happy either. Moody has regressed. He was in the low 80s, about 83% his rookie year. And I think he's down to 74, 75% conversion rate this year, which is 31st among kickers. That's not it's not nearly good enough at all. You can't spin it. I mean, if someone's going to come out now and say, well, it's still his ankle and this and that, it's worth. I mean, there's no reason if the whole, Harbaugh iron sharpens iron axiom still applies, then this can't be a Trey Lance situation in 2022 where you give no competition to Jake Moody. You bring people in, you compete. And if he actually has the best camp, cool. I would say maybe you leave a kicker on the practice squad because why not? Right. But I think the days are getting close to being numbered. And a 3rd round pick, when you see people like Aubrey from the Cowboys, who is an undrafted free agent who played in the UFL or another football league, the Vikings kicker, the Rams kicker was an undrafted rookie out of Stanford, I think. Or that was a Vikings kicker. You can find kickers. You can, and not waste a premium draft pick on it. That was the 3rd round is cursed in the draft.
It is cursed.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Niners if they could somehow switch their draft around and get to whoever's picking late to pick early and vice versa. But I don't even want him to make it to the off season or into workouts or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like the Niners need to set an example. They need to make an example out of somebody. They're not that type of team. They don't do that. They don't cut guys to make examples. I mean, they couldn't even cut Devondre Campbell if they wanted to because of what the league and how that affects them. But I don't even want to see him in the off season when it comes to OTAs or anything, training camp or anything. I want him gone because I don't think he really gives a shit. I don't think he cares. and it doesn't look like he has any guts. Just body language, just looking at him when he's on the field, it's infuriating to me because I mean, if he was in front of me and I was a teammate, I'd probably choke him out MMA style. Like I'd go straight ground and pound on him, man. I mean, it's getting to the point now where it's not even funny anymore. Like you watch him and you know he's going to miss it.
Yeah,
So,
and there's
I'm
no
over it.
emotion. There's no emotion behind that guy. It's like usually you see a kicker, he misses a kick that's as easy as the one was yesterday. You're in freaking Miami, Florida. Okay, there's probably no wind.
Perfect conditions.
Close to it. There's perfect conditions exactly, and he still misses it. What was that like? It wasn't that far of a kick. Wasn't that far of a kick? He missed it far left. Like, this guy sucks. Get rid of him. I mean, that's plain and simple. Get rid of him because, we had Robbie Gould for a while. He was an old guy and he was seasoned. I feel like I'm not saying bring Robbie Gould back, but get like a seasoned kicker that makes kicks, and I'd be happy with that. Don't friggin' waste a third-round pick on a kicker ever again. Stupidest thing. I don't know who was behind that, but John Lynch definitely wasn't. So I don't know.
He was the big coming out of the draft that year. A lot of mock drafts had the 49ers drafting Jake Moody, and a lot of us were like, yeah, best kicker in the draft. Woo, we're going to move on from Gold to a guy that has a huge leg who doesn't miss in college. And then he comes to the pros and he's like sheepishly shy and just absolutely overwhelmed and just it's too much for him. And it's like the problem with the Niners is they tend to draft like they've already won a Super Bowl. Like they treat certain picks like luxury picks, and I don't understand that.
Yes.
Middle of the draft, third round, that's third round, second day. You get set. What is it? First round is a one whole night. Then you get 2 and 3, and then you get 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a pretty important roster building piece, a third rounder, and to waste it on a kicker that you probably, like you said, you could get a free agent. You can get somebody from this, arena league or whatever. And they went and they wasted a premium pick, which they could have used like on an offensive tackle or an offensive guard or a center. And, now we're how many years out from that move, and we struggle kicking the ball, which is a no-brainer. And our offensive line is significantly worse than it was even a couple years ago. So,
well, I think the Niners just put too much feeling behind some of their draft picks. Like if you think about, I just had them in my head, but I mean, even Trey Lance. Okay, here's a guy had an amazing season, but here's the thing: anybody can have an amazing season in a Division I league. I mean, come on, like some of the feeling that the Niners get when they draft guys, I just don't get it. It's like, what do they say behind the scenes? Oh, this guy had a huge throw to this guy and it just felt right, Oh, this kicker, we should draft him third round because he made a 60-yard kick one time. That's how I feel they draft sometimes, and it's like it doesn't make any sense because
I remember Lynch after the draft, a week after, saying like, "Oh, we had competitive intelligence saying that teams behind us were going to take Moody, so we couldn't wait to get him." And that's all well and good if you feel really convicted in a player. I'm not one in for the whole, you overdrafted someone. You drafted someone early. Say you have a late first round pick, but someone like Mel Kiper, they're giving a mid-second round grade on somebody and they're saying, oh, you shouldn't have drafted him. I had a mid-second grade. Well, he probably wasn't going to be there for your second round pick. So it's okay to reach sometimes for players, especially when BPA and need, there's like a nice intersection there. But if you're reaching for a player or a position,
yeah,
2 or 3 rounds early. Now, granted, at the time in the third round, that was literally the only roster spot that was open, like literally on the roster was kicker. They had none. So they filled that. But it's felt like in the past couple drafts, I mean, even going back to 2017, right? There's the divide of you either hit on your draft picks or you miss completely. That gray area of depth building doesn't exist for this team in terms of draft picks. It's either a total shit show or they hit on a draft like they did this past year. That hasn't happened that often, but the actual players in the 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 drafts have either been, you're going to make an actual contribution or you're going to be out of the league in a year or two or off the roster in a year or two. And that you can't. I mean, and it's not to say if they had hit on any of those picks as depth pieces that this season would have looked any different. I'm not saying that, but when you're drafting in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, say that's 4 picks, you would like to think that 3 of those 4 picks will probably make your team and be on it for at least 3 years or the entirety of their contract. And I've been saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it. They need to hit on at least, I think they have 9 picks right now, at least 5 of them. And if they can, $65+ million in cap space before Brock gets extended, it's going to be a moderate retool and reload with a 4th place schedule that, again, there's no reason why, to James's point, that they don't just flip the script next year and be back to winning, 11 games. It's entirely possible, right? It just is. There's still too much talent on the roster based on the players that we know are definitely going to be here for them to be this much of a shit show.
Did you see that one statistic that they've been throwing around that said that between this year and last year, I think it was Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, and Deebo Samuel scored over 40 touchdowns last year, and this year they have only 2.
3
out of the same group of
insane.
players. That's insane.
That is a big difference.
That is the difference,
Yep.
really. Offensively, if you want to, really, brainstorm it out, like that is the biggest difference. They had no contribution from Ayuk. They had no contribution from Christian McCaffrey, and they've had very minimal, keyword on minimal, from Deebo. And Deebo looked pretty good yesterday. I don't know if somebody put Coke in his cornflakes. Like, I don't know what exactly got into him. He looked like the Deebo of old yesterday. And like I've said before, Al, like the Niners sometimes make these decisions based on like a game or two, like, oh, we're going to bring him back. I kind of almost, like I said, I almost wish Deebo kind of, flatline yesterday too and does the rest of the way, because I feel like the Niners might get lured into making one of those emotional decisions like they've done in the past, where they keep somebody way past their prime. And then, you got to think about that same thing with Moody. Like, I want Moody to bottom out, man. I want him to be as bad as he could possibly be, because I want that decision to be made with no regret. Because I've heard John Lynch always say, we have a lot of faith in this building, and it could be any player. Like, someone who's struggling, the media is like, get rid of this guy. We don't want this guy. This guy sucks. John Lynch goes on KNBR 95.7 The Game and tells everybody a completely different thing, and you're like, how do they not see the same thing? So, me, it's all about bottoming out as bad as you possibly can with certain players, and hopefully they're not here next year.
And listen, I'm sure they had faith in Devondre Campbell up until last week. I'm sure they all had faith in Devondre Campbell, especially since he was playing a little bit better the previous month leading up to him quitting on the team. And the Deebo thing too, like that, at least yesterday he looked like Deebo from the past couple of years. But Deebo from the past couple, I think what Deebo is now, or what he's always been outside of his 2022 contract year, is probably between an 800 and 900 yard receiver, right? That's that's what he is outside of that one anomaly year. The problem is, though, going into the offseason is twofold. Well, threefold. Ayuk's injury, Ricky Pearsall still being an enigma, and Deebo moving into a contract year. So even if the Niners have the only thing they cannot do, in my opinion, is extend him, unless they extend him ridiculously cheap, like insulting.
That's not going to happen.
Right. And that's not going to happen. But if they get a motivated Deebo next year because he's on a contract year, and then they just let him walk and get a 3rd round compensatory pick, I'm fine with that. Because again, we don't know what Pearsall is, if he can even find the line of scrimmage, and we don't know when Ayuk is going to be back from the torn ACL. Right. So, and maybe they even think about extending Jennings another couple of years, because at least he's close to 1,000 yards. He needs about 150 yards the last 2 games. Kittle needs about 40 or 50, and he'll go over. But I'm sure they're going to address it in the draft and free agency as well. But boy, oh boy, that Deebo thing, if someone held a gun to my head, what did they do with Deebo in the offseason? Really, really tough call. I mean, you're not going to get
him and sign T. Higgins.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I said. That's what I'm saying. T. Higgins, man, we need.
There's no way they couldn't afford him if they tried on their best day.
I don't know. We could, maybe John Lynch can pull a rabbit out of the hat. You never know. you know. But
That
we
would be the
do
only
need
way I could see. They need a guy like T. Higgins.
true wide receivers. We haven't had, Ayuk was kind of a true wide receiver, runs routes, blah blah blah.
Niners
Same thing
haven't
with
had
Ron
Niners
Jennings.
haven't had a true wide
Yeah,
receiver, and
you
I'm not
know,
counting Crabtree because Crabtree was bleh. The
yeah,
Niners haven't had a true number one wide receiver since T.O. left this
Yeah.
team.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
been that long. It's been 20 years.
I'd say
That's
I'd say
bad.
Anquan Bolden was pretty damn good though.
Okay, I
Pretty
could give you
damn
that.
good.
Bolden was
Anquan
pretty
Bolden.
good. He was a very
Yeah.
dependable guy.
That guy
Not a
can
ton of.
catch anything.
He was a
Anything.
slant machine.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
But I hear you. Like it would be nice to have like an alpha dog, 6'3", 220,
Yep.
with
T.O.
speed.
T.
type,
Higgins.
Metcalf type,
Yep.
Chase, although Jefferson's a little bit more slight, but someone that can run, can go up and get contested catches, can run through tackles like we finally saw Debo do with holding onto the ball yesterday. Debo has that alpha mentality, but he's 5'11", 6 foot. He's built more like a running back. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to find that in the draft. I think that's the only position. Well, that and quarterback are the only positions they should not be drafting in the first round.
Yep.
Or I would get furious if they did. So I know we were talking about that probably a couple weeks ago about like what how we feel if they drafted a receiver in the first round given the Ayuk injury. If Pearsall wasn't in the mix, I would probably be open to it. But they have so many. They should be drafting at least 2 offensive linemen in April. 1 guard tackle flexible, 1 guard center flexible. At least probably 2 D linemen, 1 tackle, 1 edge, a corner, a safety, definitely a tight end too. Like they have a lot of holes. And to Aaron, your point, you said it beautifully. They cannot be making these off the wall luxury picks when you have gaping needs. And it's not to say that you should just, taking someone that's like a 7th round linebacker, but you're in the 5th round and you need a linebacker because Dre's gone. You still have to be smart about it. But the Pearsall thing was confusing to all of us when he was drafted because neither receiver was moved this season, right? Like there should have been a plan in place, but they definitely need to play, toe the sweet spot of best player available and a position of need. And we all know there are a lot of positions of need come March.
I really think that the Pearsall pick was a looking forward pick
to
Debo moving out and having Debo move on after this year.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just doesn't make any no other way makes sense. They were going to get the deal with Ayuk done. He wasn't going anywhere. We could say whatever we want about teams that inquired about him. The Niners weren't going to move him unless they got an equal player in return. You're right. We don't know what he is or what he's supposed to look like, and it's so difficult because of what happened to him to get totally angry at him and blame him. But yesterday was 2 drive killing penalties, man, and it's just I mean, you've been like you said, you've been playing football since what do they call it, Pop Warner, and you're still making those kind of asinine mistakes. It's just, man, when it rains, it pours with this team, and it's they just still haven't.
They doubled their season average. It was just we all watched. It was ugly, just sloppy, as if it was like their first preseason game. Breaking camp. It was just ugly.
It did look like a preseason game.
One good thing I want to say is that I loved seeing was, I hate Tyreek Hill ever since he basically beat us in the Super Bowl. But Renardo Green played great against him. That play in the end zone, that play in the end zone was beautiful because he had his back turned towards the quarterback, but he still made it look like he was, basically.
We got a corner that finally plays the ball and turns and stays with the guy.
Yeah.
And how long have the Niners not had a corner?
That was Demo that knocked that one away. Yeah.
But there was one where Renardo Green actually.
Renardo Green. Yeah, Renardo Green knocked one out. I don't know if it was the end zone one, wasn't it?
No, that was Demo. Demo was.
Oh, that was Demo? Okay, my bad.
But Renardo Green he's
still great.
I think Tyreek got a lot of his stuff on Javarius Ward yesterday from what it looked like.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we're not gonna I don't want to dog him either because it's so tough with this team with the Niners paid a lot of money to a bunch of people that didn't finish the season. A lot of people are like, oh, Trent Williams got his money and dipped. Up until what we heard in late November, I kind of felt the same way. Again, with that whole situation, I don't know how to feel.
They
And it's,
unnecessarily paid a lot of money to Williams and to McCaffrey coming
that
off
makes
of
no sense.
and a pay bump because I know McCaffrey had no guaranteed money in 2024 and 2025, and that's why you wanted a renegotiation. So you guarantee 60% of it, 70%. Like you didn't have to give him $3 million more. And Trent Williams, even at 36, he's going to be 37. I hope he plays another 2 or 3 years, but they didn't have to pay him like a top 3 tackle just given his age. Again, they could have guaranteed more money. They've shot with these renegotiations of players that were still paid extremely fairly. And McCaffrey was already at the top of the running back market, which that's why it made no sense to me. Just guarantee some money. You didn't have to up it. All that said, there's still $65+ million under the cap next year. And they have a lot of maneuverability draft and free agent wise, which makes this whole, is the window closed? Yes. And I've been saying it to you guys, and I've been saying it on Twitter, X, or Instagram, wherever. The window's closed this year. Obviously, they've been eliminated from playoff contention. The window opens wide in March. When the new league year starts, that window is open again. You can drive a truck through the window because the Niner team that comes out on the field in 2025, if they can stay healthy, is going to look drastically different than what we've seen all season.
Yep. Let's talk. We shift it to the Greenlaw situation. We all loved seeing him back on the field last week, and it's been a sight to behold to see him back at all this season. But he hasn't been able to stay healthy since he's been back. He played one half last week, and he barely played a series, I think, this past game before going out with what they called a opposite leg calf, like a cramp, some sort of lower leg issue. I'm of the mindset, and they've talked about it. Even Fred Warner said that we have to protect Dre from himself. This is like a twofold thing, but one, have we seen the last of him? And two, do the Niners even let him get on the field the rest of the way? I say no. I say I don't know to the first one, and to the second question, yeah, you got to. He needs to not touch the field again until training camp in July. Personally, wherever that may be.
Oh yeah, I mean, Dre, he needs to. Here's the thing with all these players coming back. We saw McCaffrey, same thing happened. We brought him back too early. He got injured. Dre Greenlaw is a tough player. He's not one of those players that's going to play 80% in a game. He's going to play 110% in a game. You cannot let guys play on the field when the season doesn't matter, because they're going to play that tough, and that's when players get injured. I don't like that they're, I get the Rams game. They had to bring him back because that was a huge game. But this game, and the next ones, I say just keep him out. He is a staple in our defense. We have to keep him. We have to make sure he is our top priority. I mean, if Fred Warner's saying that, that means a lot. I mean, that's his second in line running back.
His running mate, man.
That's his running mate. Yeah, that's the Patrick Willis and Bowman we have right now. And to lose one of those guys, it just showed this year. This whole year, our run game, our defense against the run has been horrible. Yes, you can say that's a lot of the defensive line, but that's also, those two middle linebackers right there. That's a huge hole right there when you don't have Dre Greenlaw.
Dre Greenlaw is amazing against the run.
So we can't make it. I just don't get Shanahan when he does this. It's like, oh, we got to throw him in and get them some game experience, and it's like, no, you don't. Leave the guy out. The season's over.
I think that has more to do with Greenlaw. I don't think that's Kyle's.
Yeah,
I think Greenlaw is telling them that he's good to go.
Yeah. He's tough. He wants to play, But
if you ask any person, especially a person coming into a contract year, if they want to get on the field, regardless if they have some nicks, and
he wants that money.
Yeah. He wants to get on the field, one, because he loves the game, and two, because he's trying to set himself up for generational wealth. So I don't blame him whatsoever. But at this point, the Niners should protect him from himself, because even if he's not going to be here, for his own health going forward, to get paid either here or somewhere else, I think the best course of action is to sit him out and tell him, hopefully you're on our team next year. But if not, thank you for what you've done. But we're protecting you from your next employer. We don't want to permanently injure you so that you have a short career, kind of like a Navarro Bowman who had a magnificently productive, super short career. Same thing with Willis, and then they could have played so much longer and done so much more great things. But it is what it is
And
with that.
let Sorensen, well, hopefully he's not on the staff next year, but like Kyle and everybody, let Winters get more run, let Graham get more run at linebacker, cover yourself just in case Greenlaw doesn't come back. See what you have in these two young second-year players. Could they bring in, maybe someone not that Drake, Devondre Campbell was super old. He was 31 years old, but if Greenlaw goes, could they pick up a 25, 6, 7-year-old linebacker in free agency and draft one and try to find a new running mate for Fred Warner? Absolutely. And I still think it's either Hufanga or Greenlaw. I don't think they can afford both. One of them is going to get the bag. I don't think any team I don't think either player is really going to be up for a 1-year prove it deal. Remember the year the Niners, was it 2018 going into the Super Bowl? I forget the linebacker that Quan Alexander came off of, I think he was with Tampa, came off of an ACL reconstruction late in the year. Lynch still signed him to a multi-year contract. So all this, well, our team's going to wonder if they're healthy or not. They're not even thinking. I mean, March is 3 months away, 2.5 months away from free agency starting. Anything with Hufanga's knee or his wrist or Greenlaw's calves or Achilles are going to be more healed than they are now. So the Niners have to take that into consideration, and so do other teams. I can see them both collectively pricing themselves out of San Francisco, but keeping one, and it just becomes where do you want to allocate resources now? Linebacker, where you already have Fred Warner, or safety, where obviously Jair Brown to this point in his career is not the answer, and Mustafa will be a second-year player, but do you want a veteran back there to help solidify your back end? I don't know. Going to be very interesting, but Budda Baker of the Cardinals just got 3 years, $54 million, $18 million per. Hufanga could be looking at a bag like that, or even say $15 million, $13 million a year. I don't know if the Niners can swing that.
I really don't think Hufanga is going to get that sort of money, man.
No, I don't think so either.
I mean,
I'm looking at him.
Year, you don't think he can get $6 million left?
Just based on what his health has been the last couple of years, and man, he was pretty god awful yesterday. He was missing tackles left and right on the field. I don't know, man. Like if I had to pick anybody else, Al, yeah, Greenlaw would be the guy, man. But the Niners, that's a tough decision because they need to protect themselves from re-signing guys with injury issues, man. It's a tough call. I can understand if the Niners go either way with either player.
Agreed.
Either they decide to pass on both of them and, bless them. They go somewhere else and have a, second half of their career that's healthy and they play amazing. Man, it's a tough call.
I just want to say I got the 2025 free agent linebackers. I was looking at this earlier just to see, what our options would be, even if we re-sign Greenlaw, like maybe getting a third linebacker. So we got Willie Gay Jr., Joshua Uche, Joe Tryon, Akeem Davis-Gaither, who's pretty good, Malik Harrison, Delshawn Phillips, Duke Riley, Denzel Perryman, Neville Hewitt, and there's a few more. But there's some guys on that list I would take, but I'm not saying I don't want Greenlaw back, but there's guys on there. If we could get
Greenlaw is still better than half those guys.
Yeah, but if we could get a 3-headed monster and keep him somehow, I would love that. Get Uche on the edge. I doubt we could afford Uche, but we could dream about it.
Man, if only we could have kept Azeez Al-Shaair.
Yeah,
that would have been the perfect. But there was no way you're going to be able to keep him either.
Yep.
Man, that was an amazing linebacker group back a couple years ago in the 2022 season.
Personal fouls, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's right in with all the undisciplined, unruly football that these guys love to play. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one to call. If I was based in off emotion and off of just what he's done in the past, I would say, yeah, bring Greenlaw back. I have no idea what the 49ers are going to do in March. I have a feeling, though. I just have a feeling Greenlaw is coming back next year.
Oh, yeah.
a Huff, Debo, and a smattering of other players, Aaron Banks. I could see all of them gone. I mean, it's going to be an interesting free agency period. And then based on what we do in free agency, this draft, like you said, it's going to be crucial that we hit at least 4 to 5 players in this draft. The Niners need to draft at least 3 offensive linemen in this draft. Tackle guard, and center. Like, they need a player that can play multiple positions, and then a couple players that are specifically like center guard, just amazing. Or Niners could surprise us. You know how you say they might make a couple of mid-seat free agency signings out? I could see them going after a veteran center in free
Oh
agency.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities, especially if you don't bring back Hufanga.
Well, and look at what they've done at center since Kyle's been here, right? Like Weston Richburg didn't work out. Like he ripped up his knees, unfortunately. They brought him in from the Giants. Alex Mack and Jake Brendel. So if you look at the centers they've had, I don't know who Kyle inherited in 2017, or that's when they tried to get Richburg in. I don't recall. I have a hard time believing Kyle is going to let a rookie center play. So I think, and they don't have to go $15 million a year center. I don't even know if that actually exists. I don't know who's at the top of the market for centers, but I think they can grab somebody, a veteran that they could feel better about than Jake Brendel. And I would love to see them draft 3 offensive linemen. For some reason in my mind, I see them topping out at 2. But Ben Barch only had a high ankle sprain. So I think they like him enough that they will invite him back. If nothing else is depth, right?
Right.
So if Banks is gone and Feliciano's gone, and then the other ones on the roster like Austin Pleasance that they called up a couple days ago, Jalen Moore, who knows if he's going to come back. They're going to have anywhere between 2 and 4 openings on the roster for offensive linemen, and a good mix feels like 2 rookies, 2 veterans. I just, it's weird. The Chiefs drafted Creed Humphrey right out of Oklahoma a couple of years ago as their center. Andy Reid had no problem with it. Trey Smith at one of the guards, and they built a nice young wall in front of Patrick Mahomes. Shanahan will not do that. He'll build an older wall with cracks in the foundation.
They have the exact issue as Miami does.
Yep.
Watching the game with my brother yesterday, they do not prioritize offensive line. They just don't prioritize. They prioritize playmakers. That's all they do. It's the guys that touch the ball, which is fine. That's great. But if your quarterback's killed every play and in every game, I mean, your quarterback is consistently getting hurt, just like the 49ers. And if you look at the thing that is the same on both teams, is that they don't allocate other than Terron Armstead, who's always hurt in Miami. Guy's always hurt, like always. Yeah. My brother's like, he never plays. So it's legitimately the same issues, just in South Florida.
I wanted to say, and I didn't jot this down, but I remembered from the game. I just wanted to mention, since you mentioned Miami. Do you guys remember the part of the game where they showed the Venn diagram, the 3 overlapping circles of Miami's offense and the Niners offense, because of McDaniel and Shanahan, how they're the same? Yeah. The top part of the circles where they were different, Miami's passing game was short passes, quick passes, and the Niners passing game was drop back, medium to long passes. That should have been absolutely switched historically based on what these teams have, right? Miami has Tua. They like to throw deep. They have speed outside. The Niners really don't. They have Brock. It's more of a ball-controlled offense. So when I saw that, while it wasn't wrong based on what we're seeing this year with bombs away Brock and the drop-back game and Brock hesitant to take checkdowns, but then again, if I was throwing to Patrick Taylor, I'd be hesitant to check it down as well. I just can't believe I saw that, and it was true for both teams. And I was staring at that going, how did each team get there this year? Miami should be throwing the ball down the field. The Niners should be a yak team. They're not. They diverged, and I no idea why.
Yeah,
man, there's so many places. When I think about the draft this year, I think, okay, so the Niners are probably going to bring back Leonard Floyd, I would assume, and I think they bring back Yetur Gross-Matos. So there's 2 edge players. If I'm the 49ers in this draft, I'm going interior defensive line. I'm trying to get a defensive line that has an interior pass rusher.
Yeah.
I want to get an interior. I want a guy that can rush the passer from the inside. I mean, we can switch over to the defense yesterday. They weren't near the quarterback at all yesterday. Where was Bosa? Where has Bosa been? I know
And
he's been hurt. I mean, it was Bosa was MIA and MIA yesterday, and man, for as much as they invested into the pass rush this offseason, the last couple games, I mean, they had 7 sacks against Chicago and none
yeah,
since.
yeah.
That's just unacceptable on so many levels. That's
And
why I think, like I said, bottom out as hard as you can, man. Sorensen can't come back.
no,
Sorensen
no.
can't come back.
This rush 4 thing is it's getting so old, and I really don't know what's going on with Leonard Floyd this year because he looked dominant with the Bills.
He's got a decent
And
amount of sacks this year. They don't
yeah,
come in it.
half.
They don't
Yeah.
but
come at the right time.
yeah,
They come
it's
against
just
bad
not.
teams.
Yeah, it's not like when it matters. So I mean, I guess he's okay, but I don't know. We need one guy that's gonna complement Bosa or something. We keep saying that like Chase Young was supposed to be, but like you said, Aaron, I think Bosa needs to step it up. He's not. He's kind of just floating through his contract right now and loving his money.
Ever
That's
since
pretty
he
much
got
what it
paid,
looks like.
he's been invisible since he's
But
been paid.
yeah, we got to get some interior defensive linemen. I've been saying, I think when we got Collins, I felt pretty good about it because he's a big guy. We just need those big, huge guys in the middle that plug up the holes. They can push the offensive line back.
Get rid of the
They're
wide
not,
9, baby.
yeah,
Kill
and
it.
and that's it. And change the scheme. I mean, this rush 4 crap is just crazy. There's no switches. There's nothing like last year. You had players switching from side to side. Bosa's running at the same guy for, an hour straight. It's like, what do you think's going to happen?
No,
He's
no,
going to get
I
stopped.
don't see any stunts. I
No,
don't see
nothing.
any blitzing. I don't see
Nothing.
anything. It's literally drop 8, rush 4.
You could put a homeless guy as the defensive coordinator. He'd probably
Yeah,
do
like
better
the
than this.
guys that we see on the expressway all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah. He'd do better
panhandling
than
for money, and I
he'd
bet
do
you we
better than
wouldn't hit him.
Sorensen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go get him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday was tough with how quickly Tua gets the ball out of his hands, right? I mean, there's a difference versus Chicago. You're
I
going
will
up
be right
against
back.
Caleb
I have to
Williams.
kill a spider.
Oh, go ahead. I mean, a couple weeks ago they're going up against Caleb Williams, rookie, looks lost. No head coach. OC is in over his head. 7 sacks. Then you're going up against Matt Stafford in a half in the rain, which you think maybe they would get to him. Didn't get to him at all, but he gets the ball out pretty quickly in McVay's offense. And the same thing with Tua in Miami's offense. They're going to address both tackle and edge in the draft. I mean, your top 3 DNs are obviously Bosa, Floyd, and Gross Matos. You draft someone hopefully in the top 3 rounds to be DN number 4, then you could let Sam O, Robert Beal, and Drake Jackson, assuming he's healthy, fight it out for that 5th defensive end spot, right? And the same thing at D tackle. Kevin Givens is gone. He's not under contract. Can't see them bringing it back. Evan Anderson is a nice piece, but he could be easily bumped off potentially by someone, a 1st or 2nd round pick with Collins and Hargrave. If Hargrave comes back, they have some pieces, but some of it has to be, I think, schematically addressed. I don't know if it will be schematically addressed with a new defensive coordinator.
Right.
But I think it is a mix of personnel, scheme. And I was proud of Nick Sorensen. He actually blitzed, I think, twice in the first quarter. I don't know if I saw any after that. Didn't get to Tua, didn't force a turnover or anything. But yeah, the Sorensen, as I keep saying, like the different flavors of vanilla that he brings every week. And I love vanilla. It's probably my favorite ice cream flavor, but I'm just tired of sampling it every week when the Niners defense
and they don't get turnovers either because they don't put pressure on the passer. If you can't put pressure on the passer, you're not going to force turnovers.
Right.
You're not going to get strip sacks. You're not going to force interceptions. A guy's going to have all the time in the world, regardless of how good your corners are. If your corners have to cover for more than 4 seconds, 5 seconds, I don't care if you got Deanna in his prime back there. Someone's going to get open, and that's been even when they have a really good. Everybody's playing their zones and dropping into where they need to be. You can look off of Fred Warner, off of somebody, and then get the ball where the vacant spot is because there's no one to pressure him. A lot of big plays that come from Dre Greenlaw, that come from Fred Warner, were always when the edge, they were getting pressure on the quarterback and forcing, they're forcing those balls into the areas where those guys are dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys can drop there all they want. If no one's getting to them, then, there's so much that needs to be done defensively going into next season. one of my biggest gripes has been stop placating the players when it goes to choosing a defensive coordinator. I don't give a crap if the players don't like the guy or if they don't want to change schemes. What you've been doing ain't working.
Yeah.
So bringing in
And
somebody that has a track record, who's a crusty old man who just he knows his, his 3-4 or 4-3 defense, but he's really good at it and he knows how to coach it. They need to quit this placating to players because I think it's been a detriment to them the last couple of years.
I think the difference just is understanding what scheme fits the players best, and is that different than what scheme Kyle wants to run? Because they might not be the same thing, right? They might not. I don't know if he had a chance at Vic Fangio last year when I guess he got released, excuse me, by the Dolphins, went to Philadelphia. That defense was hurting the first 6 weeks of the season. Now they're the number one defense in the NFL. So there is something to be said if it was Bosa saying that it takes some time to understand the offense. If it's a new coach, a new play caller coming in, I get it. I mean, and I think Philadelphia is a prime example because they have talent. They have a supremely experienced and talented DC, and that defense. And I know because I drafted them in fantasy in both my teams thinking, man, Vic Fangio with that talent, they're going to, and they were terrible the first month and I dropped them. And now they're pretty dominant outside of yesterday against Washington. So I think there is something to that, but if the scheme is not best fitting the players, then Kyle has to acquiesce to someone, and someone's gonna have to come in. If he gets rid of Sorensen and he interviews outside the building, they're really gonna have to build their case like a lawyer to explain, Kyle, this is why I think we should be evolving.
Well, they have plenty of horrible statistics this year to go based on.
Yeah. Oh, they have a whole lot. Their point differential is negative 53 in the fourth quarter. They're getting outscored by 53 points.
The only
and
thing
that's on the offense too. That means the offense isn't scoring, but the team is letting up a whole lot.
Yeah, you could that would be your case right there. But like, I could guarantee that my defense won't give up plus 53 in the fourth quarter next season. That should be the and if he can prove it with fancy talk and some crazy bookkeeping with all the stuff he's done in the past, then let's see if he can do it. But
Steve Wilkes can, because his defense.
I know it won't happen. I know it won't happen, but I would really love for us to have a defensive coordinator for a few years, because this whole thing that we had D'Amico Ryans and we had Saleh, great defensive coordinators for at least the year they were with us, and then they're gone just like that. What would our team be like if we got a solid defensive coordinator,
like a Spagnuolo in KC? He is resigned to the fact that he's going to be a defensive coordinator until he retires.
Yeah, and look how good their defense is. It just shows you when you mesh with a coach like we have with Shanahan. I mean, this year is not great, but you mesh with a coach for a few years, your team just it gets better and better. And with a different coach every year, especially this guy that the guys get along with, it's like, it's not what's going to happen. The guy looks like a guy that would work at a gas station. Go get a guy that has some muscle on him.
No offense to people that work at a gas station, by the way.
Yeah. Get a guy that looks like a freaking coach. I mean, this is a joke. I can't stand looking at the guy. Even when they show him, I'm just like, why is that our coach? And sorry about that, guys. We've had a horrible spider problem this year in our house. We have little ones, and they've been everywhere this year. So I have to kill them for my wife all the time.
Don't worry about it. It's all good.
All right.
As long as it isn't mice. I'm afraid of mice.
Yeah. Spiders are even worse. I think.
Big guy who's afraid of mice. Go figure. I think the last thing really that I want to talk about when we get out of here is just how undisciplined they looked yesterday. And what is the root cause of all these penalties and these, unsportsmanlike conduct and just clock issues, lining up issues? Like, I would love to be like a fly on the wall in some of these position group meetings or in Kyle talking to the team in general. Is it a concentration thing? Are people mentally checked out because of the year that it's been? Are people ready to go on vacation to Cabo? Like, it's been all year and it's been bad. The penalties have been horrendous. Yesterday was about as bad as you can do it. The whole thing with Pearsall not lining up twice and then getting chewed out by
Yeah.
Hankerson on the sideline.
Yeah.
I'm glad that happened.
It's
Yeah.
got
I'm
to. It's unforgivable. I mean, once I would chew him out, twice, forget it.
Yeah.
I would
I
love to
think
know
it's
what the underlying issue is with this team. Is it just, I don't know, is it familiarity? Is it people have become too comfortable? You know, it's
there's
like, when you work with a boss that you've known for a long time, you can screw around. You can get away with coming in late. You can get away with not finishing your work because you're best friends with the boss. What is it? Like, I would love to know. And like I said, I'd be a guy someone in the wall and during a defensive meeting or an offensive meeting. I would love to know what exactly is behind all of it, or it's just people just don't care. What is it?
that's what I kind of think. I think there's some players on this team that don't take things too seriously because they think their talent is good enough. There's certain times where I've seen players. I'm not going to name names because there's not one player that on our team really that's like the problem when it comes to penalties. But there's always going to be those few players on a team that, oh, I'm doing this good every year. I'm getting this many tackles. I'm getting forced fumbles or whatever, and they don't take the little things seriously. And that's really what you got to look at. I don't know if that's it for sure. That's just a feeling I have, but it could be that. It could be a lot of things. There's been so many, like I said earlier, there's been so many lineups that are different. How many offensive linemen have we changed throughout this year? When you have different guys working with each other, there's going to be some miscommunication. With Pearsall, I like I said earlier, I think it's his first year, yeah, but the guy should know what's going on by now. You need to
He
know
got
where you're
screamed at
lining up.
yesterday.
Yeah.
He got screamed at yesterday before the two penalties happened.
Mm-hmm.
I know Brock was pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
when you have
wasn't lined up in the correct spot.
yeah,
And
and
then
when you have
Debo,
a
of course, the previous weeks, who's on Dream Street, who knows where his mind is.
yeah,
A lot of it is focus to me. It's a lack of focus.
yeah,
I think it feels like too. I'll throw my hat in the ring for their pressing. Like I think every week outside of week 1 where they beat the Jets and they were above 500, it feels like the back's been against the wall for one reason or another. McCaffrey, Ayuk, Pearsall, other injuries, things just not clicking. And I think when that happens, and I think Brock falls under that as well, like the whole bombs away Brock drop back game, yesterday's interception. I mean, granted, he got hit, and it certainly affected where the ball went. If Brock doesn't get hit, it might not be a completed pass, but it might not be an intercepted one as well. So everybody that's breaking down film saying, oh, Jennings wasn't open, why is he throwing it? Well, you can't guarantee me that it was going to be intercepted if he had a clean pocket. We'll never know. We just know what happens when he got hit. But it feels like pressing a bit. And it's funny, like on a punt return or a kick return, you let it run out. There's a touchdown. You hear the announcer say, no flags on the field. It got to the point maybe at mid-season where my toes would curl anytime the Niners had any sort of positive play because you're waiting for the flag.
Yep.
Even if it was a 6-yard run, forget about a 30-yard gain.
oh yeah,
But Debo can't run up the middle for 5 or 6 without Brendel holding somebody. Like you're waiting to be pushed back. And they had 11
Brendel's staring too much at the quarterback all the time.
yeah.
There's that
There was
one
11 instances yesterday where they pushed themselves
I know
back.
he's
3 of them
opposite
were after the
direction,
final whistle.
looking at the quarterback.
There
I
was
know,
a
that's
play.
crazy.
There was a play where Brock gets flushed out to the right. Brendel's literally staring at Brock.
Yep.
Staring. Yep.
And I'm just beyond, like, Brendel is so bad as a center
Horrible.
in the National Football League. How can you be go ahead?
93 penalties this year, by the way. 93. That was what? How many games are we in? 15.
We have 2 games to go still. We haven't even played the Lions.
That's like 6 a game at least.
Yeah, they were
7,
averaging about almost 6 coming into yesterday, and they almost doubled it up.
That's ridiculous.
Like, who do you blame though? Is it coaching? Is it players? Is it a both? But they've had issues with penalties even in other years too, not just this year. And it's just, to me, if they just are drive killers. A lot of these penalties.
Yeah. Oh, huge.
First
They
and
never- they
it's
rarely
first
get
and 10.
on
All of a
with
sudden, it's
penalties.
first
Yep.
and 20, and then
Yep.
Brock gets sacked, and it's first and
Yep.
20. You're done. Your drive's over.
Well,
When
the
we get that
Pearsall
third and
penalty-
20, it's over.
Pearsall penalty went from 1st and goal to 3 to 5 yards back, incompletion, missed field goal.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the epitome of a drive.
But that's
killing
all
full
year
second
they've been
penalty.
like that. It's just been that combination of
Red
penalties.
zone penalties. Red zone penalties
man.
are horrible. That's
That's
why,
all they should worry about in camp next year when they do like red area, when they do like those end of practice things where they do like red area, red
Yeah.
zone, end of half, whatever. They need to practice that like I mean till
Yeah.
guys are fainting. Like there has to
Yeah.
be a emphasis on all of this stuff. But knowing John and Kyle, especially Kyle is, Kyle with his practices and everything is cool and there's rap music and everybody's jiving. So I don't know.
What's baffling to me this year is, okay, yes, our red zone percentage is horrible. Yes, Christian McCaffrey's been out. This guy's been out. That guy's been out. We have Kyle Shanahan as our coach. He can't think of better plays to get us in the end zone. That's really what baffles me this year because
I know.
Kyle's had it down
everybody
here play
says,
calling too.
yeah, everybody says, you got the best offensive coach, blah blah blah. Well, he hasn't been shown it this year because we get to that red zone, it's like we hit a freaking wall, every time, and it doesn't matter who's in the game. I mean, you got Jennings, you got Debo, you got Kittle. We still have those weapons that can get in the end zone. So how the hell are we not getting in the end zone? And a lot of it is penalties. A lot of it is miscommunication. A lot of it's bad passes or a lot of it's offensive linemen not blocking.
A lot of
And
it
that's
also is
really-
not having Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
Yes, it
Because
is.
Christian McCaffrey was like a get out of jail free card every drive,
But you can't depend on him all the time.
You can't.
Yesterday, they left at least 7 points on the board. The missed field goal by Moody, again, it would have been first down and goal at the 3 after Debo's reception. And then was it the drive at the end of the half where Kittle was wide open and Brock's pass got tipped at the line? Or else that would have been a touchdown, but Moody did convert that field goal. So they're beating themselves every which way. I mean, granted, that was a good play by the Dolphins defensive lineman, right? But stupid penalties, bad luck plays, Kyle not scheming people open, not using other running backs in a McCaffrey-like role to attempt to open things up, not running the ball when you're inside the 5, going to shotgun, which I absolutely hate. The only thing I hate more than going to shotgun inside the 5 is rolling out inside the 5.
Yeah.
Shotgun or not, because then you're only looking at a third of the field. That just makes no sense to me. Everything. You could either say everything has not clicked or nothing has clicked. I think it both means the same thing, but it is disappointing across the board. And again, I said this to start the podcast, at least they're consistent.
Yep.
Well, everybody, that I think it officially wraps up week 15. We will see you here next week after the Detroit Lions game. I'm sure that game will be fun to watch and we'll have lots to talk about.
For who?
So, and
I
probably for
can't wait
for the Lions. But hey,
the
listen,
Lions are a 3.5 point favorite only.
that makes no sense.
We
That
all
they
should
should be
run
at
out
least.
to DraftKings right now and throw $100 on Detroit. Like
I should throw
Yeah.
I should put
I'm
the
gonna
balance
throw
of
it,
my
yeah.
balance of my house on there.
I feel better about 2.5. Don't get me
I'm
wrong.
gonna have a Corvette
3.5,
next week.
Come on.
Exactly. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Take care.
Have a good one.